Good morning, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Mackey. My call sign is Bullet, and I'm an F-15 pilot from the 366 Fighter Wing stationed at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. The F-15 is a jet you see behind me. It's the Air Force's premier multi-role fighter, meaning it does both air-to-air and air-to-ground type fighting. I've been in the Air Force about 17 years and started off here in Pasco, Washington with my first orientation flight. From there I did ROTC and been stationed around the world for most of the last 17 years. I started at BYU ROTC down in Provo, Utah. Through the ROTC program, I competed and was able to get a pilot slot and a commission in the United States Air Force. For I was assigned to go to pilot training in Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. Pilot training is about a year long. The first 6 months you fly the T6 Texan II, which is a single engine turboprop tandem seat with your instructor sitting behind you for most of it. So you fly that for 6 months, and then at the end of that they rack and stack you against all of your other classmates, and you put in your wish list, and then they track select you into one of a couple different tracks. One of them is for fighter and bombers, another one is for your tanker and airlift type flying. I tracked to the fighter bomber side where I flew the T-38 Talon. I did that for about another 6 months after that. Upon graduation, you officially get your Air Force wings, and they give you a specific aircraft to fly. I was assigned to be an instructor pilot there in pilot training for 3 years, which is what's called a first assignment instructor pilot, or a FAPE. It's a little non-standard career path, but it was just right for me and my family. Allowed me to be able to keep flying and to be there the early stages of our family having children. So after that, I was assigned to go fly the F-15, and I went through a fighter fundamentals course flying the T-38. That's the first time you use the jet as a weapon. Before that, you're just learning to fly in all types of environments, even formation and things like that. But when you go to fighter fundamentals, that's the first time you learn to use this thing to kill or keep from being killed. You go through that short course, and then I was assigned to go to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina, where I learned to fly the F-15. After just about 5 flights and a couple of sims, you're checked out in the F-15, and then it's on to tactical flying. The B course, as we call it, or the basic course, is about 9 months long. And that's where we go everything from, well, you've learned how to fly the F-15, everything from how to start it to how to fly it, but then also how to employ it, both in low altitude, medium altitude, all weather, day and night type environments. Some of the craziest flights are flying low altitude in the mountain at night on your night vision goggles and with your terrain following radar on, just staying above the nap of the earth there basically to get in and hit your targets. So. From there, you come out as an official F-15E pilot, and they send you to your first operations unit. When you're there, you go through a mission qualification course where, when you're complete with that, it's about 4 months, you are, no kidding, combat mission ready. And then you're off to war shortly thereafter, and you'll rotate with your squadron. About 6 months every 2 years, you'll go through the Middle East and serve a tour over there. So. There was a period of time where I came back to the FTU, to the formal training unit, and I taught others how to fly the F-15 as well. That was a fun assignment. That's one of the things I've loved about all my assignments is I've been an instructor in most of them, and so to be able to teach, which I love, and to be able to fly, which I love, you put those two things together, makes for a great assignment. The model, the E model that I'm flying right now, the E model, F-15E, the Strike Eagle, came about because the Air Force, the F-15 was built to be an air superiority fighter. It was going to fight its way in against other air threats and clear the way for everybody else. Well, after they did such a good job, they thought, hey, we could actually put some conformal fuel tanks on this thing, add some hard points to where they could carry air-to-ground munitions. And now they could hit some targets while they were in there. And so they threw in another seat of a weapons systems officer who sits in the back seat and runs all kinds of sensors on the jet. He is a key player there. Having 2 people in the jet is incredible, the amount of capability that it brings to the fight. We hit targets and kill other aircraft all at the same time versus one or the other. And then when it's just an air-to-air fight, he's an incredible piece of the puzzle to help make sure that we're on timeline and that we're considering all of the defensive actions as well. So coupling those two things together makes it a pretty lethal force when you got 2 people in the jet and all the capabilities that this one has. This is a 4th gen fighter, so the 5th generation fighters are your F-22s and F-35s. They bring the stealth capability. With that, you have to make some trade-offs, so we typically look at this as Dad's work truck. It's a hammer swinger that brings a lot of iron to the fight. We can carry a lot of bombs, a lot of missiles, and stay airborne for quite a bit. We don't have the stealth abilities that the 22s and 35s have, but we can bring a lot. In fact, we're one of the favorite aircraft downrange in Afghanistan and Iraq, fighting ISIS right now, because we bring a variety of weapons. We can carry 2,000 pounders and laser-guided 500 pounders and laser-guided and GPS-guided 500 pounders, and then also the gun. So next to the A-10, I'd say we're probably up there as number 1 and 2 as far as downrange favorites of the JTACs and the guys on the ground. I know the Air Force is really excited as well about the F-15EX that's coming out soon. It's an upgraded version of this. We've taken the F-15E and we've made foreign military sales variants and have sold them to different countries, and have had quite a bit of success developing it and improving it even more. The one you see behind me it's pretty old. Money was allocated for it back in '88, built in '91. It's seen a lot of combat hours, and you climb inside, it looks like Dad's old work farm truck, you know? It's pretty dirty and everything's scraped off, but it's done really well for the defense of our nation. So, I have seen combat in Afghanistan. That's mainly where the F-15E has been. It's been in Iraq as well, and kind of in Iraq, Syria area right now. Yeah, it's been a workhorse, and it's been great to some of the best conversations I've ever had is talking to the guys on the ground afterwards about a particular engagement and what had happened, and just to hear the gratitude in their voice, and to hear the effects that we were able to have by bringing air power so quickly and powerfully to the fight, to be able to help shape that. There have been many times where guys have said, we only made it out of there because of the air power overhead. So thanks for being there, and that was a good feeling to know that we could be there and help shape that fight. A lot of times it's like, hey, what's better, the F-15 or the F-16 or the A-10? And what I've learned in the Air Force is that it is really about the whole family. Each of us brings something unique to the fight, and without us, there's a gaping hole that is left for everybody else to fill in. We feel the same way when the A-10s or the Growlers don't show up to the fight for some reason. That's a big hole that we got to fill, and it adjusts how we fight that fight. All of our tactics are built on all the skills that all of us have and how we fight so well together. And the Strike Eagle's a key part of that, to be able to bring in both that air-to-air. Sometimes we're called on to do just air-to-air, sometimes it's air-to-ground only, sometimes it's a little of both. I like that versatility, I like the variety that it brings, and so that's why I wanted to fly the Strike Eagle. So the F-15E does, it is getting older. And that brings with it some maintenance challenges as parts start to break and things get older, which is why the force needs to recapitalize periodically. This still has many years left in it, but we need to be forward thinking about the next fighters, the next air power assets that are going to be able to help us maintain that. So one of the things that we get to do a lot in Mountain Home is we have a large chunk of airspace for the surface to the moon, and we get a lot of assets that get to come down and train with us. And that's one of the advantages we have over other countries, is we can practice war on a large scale often. And we make a lot of mistakes, but we all come back together and we all debrief and watch the tapes and the lines and everything and find out how we messed up and how we can fix it. The enemy won't be that kind to us and let us, fix those mistakes. And so it's critical that we get that training in right now. And places, especially out west, where the airspace is big and they don't mind if we go supersonic often, and are pretty critical to be able to make sure that we got an Air Force that's ready for war the minute we're called on to go do that. Yeah, over the National Aerospace System, we're not allowed to go supersonic unless it's within confined areas. So special use airspace, military operating areas, and then there's always an altitude restriction associated with that too. So for example, Mountain Home right now, 10,000 feet above the ground, or 30,000 feet in other parts of that Mountain Home range complex. So yeah, as a kid, we used to hear them all the time, didn't we? We used to hear sonic booms all the time, and since then they've put a big stop to that. So I had the opportunity to fly an F-4 a couple of years ago, and that was one that I'd always wanted to fly. It was actually down in Florida, and we were chasing other drones that they were going to go out and shoot down. Periodically we go out and we shoot down drones with missiles for our training. And sometimes it's older aircraft like F-4s that we dress up as drones and go out and fly and shoot down. Well, I got to fly one, and that was magical because I knew of all the history, and I just sat there in the cockpit and I thought of the aircrew that had sat in that jet and what they had done and where they had done it at, you know, in Vietnam or Korea or wherever around the world, and how amazing that must have been now to be sitting in that seat and thinking about what they had done. But it really was pretty inspiring to me. I really enjoyed that. There's lots of ways to get into flying. Flying is fun. And whether it's through an FBO like here at Bergstrom, or whether it's through an ROTC program or OTS or through an academy service, do it. Stick with it, and it is a lot of fun. There is never a day that goes by that I don't look at the clock and wish that the day would go faster, ever. There's never enough time. I wish it would go slower because it's enjoyable. Just the view you get from up there really helps me set the perspective again on life and what's going on and mankind and how we're doing. I love getting up there, and just the solitude of being airborne is fun. Do well at whatever you do. So if you like to study a certain topic, go do it. Try to get the Air Force or the Navy to pay for it, but do it well and have fun. A lot of the lessons you learned apply to flight, and a lot of the lessons you learn while flying really have application to life all over the place. Some people ask me, is it boring to fly small aircraft now after you fly something like this? And I always say, no, it's not. It's just the feel of flight is something that's just magical, and something that I could do forever. So whether it's a fast pointy jet like this, or whether it's a Cessna or something else, once that's in your blood, and to be able to slip the surly bonds and to fly is just something you can't give up very easily.